Hello and welcome to the program You and Your Health aired on Equinoxe Radio Multimedia. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. World Hypertension Day is celebrated annually on the 17th of May. The celebration is meant to create awareness and equally educate the population on the dangers of hypertension. On today's program, we are going to be looking at some facts concerning this particular disease, but that will only be after this short break. Thank you for staying with us. My guest for today will be Professor Anastase Duday, a cardiologist and heart rhythm specialist at the Douala General Hospital. It is a pleasure having you on the program once more, Professor.
Yeah, thank you, Immaculate. Pleasure is mine too, and I want to address my good day to the televiewers and the listeners of the Equinoxe television.
Okay, so today we'll be looking at hypertension, which is equally known as high blood pressure. What does it mean to be hypertensive?
Yeah, high blood pressure, which as you said, is also called hypertension. Simply means that the blood pressure of the person is higher than normal. So the blood pressure changes usually during the day based on our activities. But having blood pressure which is constantly or consistently above the normal values is therefore called high blood pressure or hypertension.
You talked about blood pressure being normal. What is the normal range for blood pressure?
Yeah, so maybe before I talk about the normal values, I would like to explain a little bit what blood pressure is.
Okay.
So we know very well about the heart. We also know about the pipes that leads from the heart to the body, to the rest of the body. Mm-hmm. So when the heart pumps blood, then that blood is going to circulate through those pipes. And blood pressure is simply the pressure that blood pushes against the wall of the pipes, of the arteries. So arteries, while carrying blood, will actually be the blood while going through the arteries will actually cause some pressure, and that's the pressure that is called blood pressure. So when you go to the hospital and they take your blood pressure, they measure your blood pressure, then there are going to be a number of possibilities. So if your blood pressure is below 90/60, because when you take blood pressure at the hospital, we usually write two numbers. So people should be familiar to numbers. The number that is written first is the systolic value. So that corresponds to when the heart pumps blood, and that's the pressure that is in the arteries when the heart pumps blood. And the number that is written under is going to be the number that corresponds to the pressure in the arteries when the heart relaxes. Mm-hmm. So if your doctor, for example, say your blood pressure is 110/70, that means that when the heart is pumping blood, then the pressure in your arteries is 110 millimeter of mercury, and when your heart is relaxing, then the pressure is 70 millimeter of mercury. So this blood pressure is taken, and the systolic, that's the highest value, is below 90, and the diastolic is below 60, then we usually say the blood pressure is low. That's what is called hypotension. It's not usually a problem except people feel some symptoms, and it's usually due to other conditions, not really a problem of the cardiovascular system. Now, if the pressure is between 90 and 120 for the upper values, and the second value is between 60 and up to 80, then that's the ideal blood pressure. That's where we want the whole population to be. And we really hope that the majority of our population has that blood pressure. So that's what actually guarantees us that we will not be suffering from other consequences of high blood pressure. Now, if the pressure is between 120 and 140 for the upper value, or the second value is between 80 and 90, then it means that the person is at higher risk of developing high blood pressure. It means that this person should start changing his lifestyle in order to keep the pressure normal. And the last category, which fortunately is not the majority of the population, is when the systolic blood pressure, that's the upper value, is above 140, and or the diastolic is above 90. Therefore, if the pressure is measured on several occasions and the pressure is consistently above this value, then we are going to say that the person has high blood pressure or hypertension.
You are a specialist in this domain. How common is this disease in Cameroon?
Yeah, so that's really a huge concern, because just a couple of decades ago, blacks were considered not to be having or not to be suffering from high blood. And over the past few years, few decades, I would say about 2 to 3 decades, the number of people affected by high blood pressure has increased dramatically. So, for example, in a country like us, 1 of every 3 adults suffer from high blood pressure. That's like 30% of the population. So one of every 3 adults. So if you are walking on the street and then you cross 3 people, then you just probably cross 1 person with high blood. So that's quite significant. And the worst with this problem is that it doesn't have symptoms. So people who are suffering from high blood do not usually know they have high blood, so they don't go to the hospital. And because they don't go to the hospital, therefore they are not diagnosed, so they don't know, and therefore they are not treated. So they spend a number of years exposed to complications of high blood pressure. So it's really a rampant problem, and we really need to address it.
So now, what accounts for the rise in cases, especially in Cameroon? Let's take our context. What are some of the causes?
A number of people, in fact, patients usually ask for causes of high blood pressure. It is important to understand that there are 2 main categories of hypertension or high blood pressure. So the majority of the population with high blood pressure, that's about 90% of people, I can say 90 to even 95% of people, have what we call essential hypertension. That means there is no individualized cause in such a way that if you go and cancel the cause, then the high blood pressure is going to disappear. But just in about 5 to 10% of people, maximum 15% of people, then a cause will be identified. So most of the time, high blood pressure is in fact related to other conditions, to some other conditions that increase the chances of the individual to have high blood pressure. For example, if as people's age is going to go up, then their blood pressure is going to also rise. As people will be having some familiar exposition, people who have their parents or their relatives who have had high blood pressure, then their chances of having high blood pressure is also high. But apart from those factors that cannot be changed, Most important is the other factors that are really responsible for an increase in our blood pressure, and that can be changed. I will actually mention overweight or obesity, which is one of the most important causes. So if the weight of people is rising, then their blood pressure is also going to rise. Most of the time we say if you gain 1 kilo, it is likely that you are going to also gain 1 millimeter of mercury. So you can imagine that people who are putting on weight, they are at higher risk of having high blood. Apart from high blood, people who have diabetes mellitus, they are also at risk of having high blood pressure. I also mentioned those who have cholesterol, people who smoke, people who drink alcohol excessively. And when we talk about alcohol, drinking alcohol excessively, I want to point especially people who spend the whole week without drinking, and then over the weekend they just go and then maybe drink almost a bar. Let me say it that way. So this is usually very, very much correlated with an increase in the blood pressure. It might take some time, but it actually always end up with an increase in the blood pressure. And of course, I will also add to all of this poor eating habits. People not eating enough vegetable, not enough fat, and then eating more salt and then more fats and sugar. So those are some of the causes, not really causes, but factors that will increase our chances of developing high blood pressure.
Okay, you just mentioned...
Not forgetting stress, of course.
Okay.
Stress, we shouldn't forget about it because, it's very much associated with high blood pressure.
Okay. You just mentioned obesity as one of the major risk factors. Apart from obesity, what are some other health problems associated with high blood pressure?
As consequences of high blood?
Exactly.
Yeah, as consequences of high blood pressure, it's not really about obesity. Obesity is rather a risk factor. So this will increase the chances of people to have high blood pressure. And once people have high blood pressure, one of the major changes in the body is that the arteries are going to be less elastic. The arteries are going to be less elastic, and the higher the pressure, then the higher for these arteries that have become less elastic to either burst or to get blocked.
Okay.
So if it gets burst or gets blocked in the brain, then it causes stroke. I think our population is well aware of the fact that stroke is rising disproportionately in our environment, and that one of the causes is really hypertension or high blood pressure. High blood pressure also affects the heart, and then causing many heart diseases. And when I'm talking about heart disease, that is also heart failure, which is a condition during which the heart is unable to really exert its function, which is either to pump blood or to relax appropriately. High blood pressure will cause heart failure, but it can also cause heart attack. It can also cause some other conditions of the heart, like arrhythmia. A number of arrhythmias are also related to high blood pressure, especially what is called atrial fibrillation, which is also very, very linked to stroke. And then it will also finally cause kidney dysfunction and kidney disease. So a number of people who will find themselves with their kidney blocked and they will be called upon to undergo dialysis is really because of high blood pressure or hypertension.
Due to time constraints, I guess we'll be coming back to the same topic some other time. But I think that's what we are going to be ending for the program today, Professor. That was Professor Anastase Dude. He is a cardiologist and heart rhythm specialist at the Douala General Hospital. And we're talking about some common facts concerning hypertension, equally known as high blood pressure. But don't worry, next time we'll come back with this topic and we'll give you more details on what you're supposed to know about high blood pressure or hypertension. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe, and I received technical assistance from Raphael Defanda. Have a lovely day in the company of more programs on Equinoxe Radio and on television. So long.